G'day guys, and welcome back to another video from Rob's Shack. Recently I helped out a good mate of mine, VK2 ARI, with the Catsync Web SDR program and his Yaesu FTDX 3000 radio on a challenge that was happening there with synchronizing. For those of you that don't know, Catsync is a Web SDR utilizing the Kiwi SDR network and one other that escapes me off the top of my head right now, that allows you to load the SDR up in the program as if you were viewing it on a website, and then allows control from the radio or from the program itself here, controlling the radio. The concept of it is, if you've got any gaps in your receive or having challenges with your receive, you're able to come in here, connect to one of the many Kiwi SDRs out there, and plug that receive gap, providing of course the station can hear you okay. And there's a huge list of what have we got, 471 receivers online at the moment from across the world. That's a text version. You can search by call signs or what the SDR is called, or ideally come up to a map and you can see them where they all are over the world. Being in Australia here, depending on where the contact is that you're trying to make, of course, but there's a number that you can connect to. Hovering over the pins will give you information about the site. Moving back onto this, so the idea of this software provided by DJ0MY Oscar is that you can click around here on the spectrum. I can see here's people are connected to other channels. You can click on the spectrum here and have the radio, have this software control the radio directly. That's this click and tune function here, and also the synchronized TX VFO, muting audio on transmit so you don't hear yourself back through it, and it uses the middleware layer Omni-rig to do the CAT control. And obviously you got to have your sync flag check there for that to work properly, and the right rig setup in Omni-rig to start with. Now, when Ari first started using the software, it was exhibiting some weird behavior where every time you clicked and tuned on a frequency, it would automatically force the TX VFO to VFO-B. The other issue that was exhibited was around this control panel here you've got down the bottom. If you tried to select a pull down box like this, excuse me, it would quickly disappear on you and you weren't able to select any of the options, and it did that for all of the controls down the bottom here, which is a bit of a pain. You know, trying to select a frequency and plug it in, key it in, for example, that wouldn't work. Only the click and tune component of it would work. Yeah, we emailed Oscar on this one, and he was very, very quick to respond and very keen to understand and help where he could. So hats off there, Oscar. Yeah, certainly well done, very responsive. I spent some time analysing the CAT commands and doing a bit of a deep dive there with a serial port monitor, and having a look at what was actually happening over the serial line to the radio. It was actually over USB, but effectively it's a COM port, and used a COM port monitor there to see what was actually being sent. And with Oscar's help of understanding what API commands he was calling with Omni-rig, was able to translate how Omni-rig was handling that command and look at how to modify the ini file. For those of you that aren't familiar with Omni-rig, if you go to the program folder that Omni-rig is in by default, it's program files, AFRET, Omni-rig rigs, and you'll see a list of all the ini files here, including one that was supplied for the FTDX 3000. What I was able to establish through all that analysis is that when a frequency change is called by the program to Omni-rig, that was translating to about 3 commands that were being sent to the radio from Omni-rig itself. If I just bring up the UNI file itself, you can see the layout here. I wasn't familiar with this at the start, but basically there's a whole set of commands here for various things, and you'll see the sections of the UNI file, so it gives you they're fairly well commented to understand what each section of the UNI file is doing. Some of them are write commands, or writing, writing to the radio, and others are polling commands. So Omni-rig polls the radio at a set interval. What's the default there if I bring it up? On this particular UNI file, poll interval was set to 200 milliseconds, and then basically what it's doing is requesting a read status of all these commands from the radio. So what I was able to do is download the Catsync reference document in PDF from the Yaesu website in the file section for the FTDX 3000, and have a look through the codes and basically what they're used for. The sections of interest, jumping to the punchline there, what I established was in the original file is on the left here, and the modified file is on the right hand side, the working file. So you got PM split mode on. Now in the Catsync program, basically that's only if you check synchronized current VFO instead of RX VFO. I thought there was a split mode there. Make a liar of me. Anyway, jumping back to the UNI file, we've got the split mode on, split mode off, and then settings for each of the VFOs. So what I found is every time a frequency was clicked, and sorry I'm clicking around a bit here, every time a frequency was clicked on the timeline here with click and tune enabled, that translated to effectively 3 commands going to the radio. And the effect that was having was disabling the TX on VFO A and forcing the TX to VFO B every time you clicked, which wasn't the desired behavior in this case. What I found looking at the manual is the commands, some of the commands that are sent to the radio every time there's a frequency click. One was the PM split off. So basically the program calls a set simplex frequency. That translates to a PMO split off. Obviously triggers the frequency command to be sent, which is further up the top here, set frequency, FA. And also triggered it triggered 2 split offs, I believe, and one of these VFO ones from memory. So looking at the original command, you can see here with split off, it was triggering the command FT0. If we go to the CAT manual for Yaesu, and I believe it was page 11. Yep, page 11. You can see here we've got the FT command, which was the one in question we were looking at, FT. It was set to FT0. FT0 you can see here, so there's the function, here's the options, valid options for that function, and you can see here it actually toggles a VFO. So effectively, because it was sending that string of 3 commands, it was toggling it on, toggling it off, toggling it on, toggling it off, in very quick succession. The end result was leaving the radio in a TX state on VFO B. So to get around that, if you have a look at what I changed there, I changed it from FT0 to FT2. Looking at the manual here, or the reference, FT2 is VFO band A for the transmitter. So it doesn't matter how many times that command's set, it's not doing any toggling like an on or off, it's just setting that VFO as the transmit VFO. If that's not desired for you, then you can set it. I would suggest your choices are A and B on that transmitter. I'd suggest that you either set it to number 2 or number 3, depending on what your desired behavior is there. And if I jump back to the file again, you can see also I did play with the split on and split off side. That was previously set to FT1 and split on set to now FT3. So we've gone from 1 to 3. If we have a look at that here, it was toggling this one, which again was not achieving the desired behavior. 3 sets the transmitter to the transmit to the VFO B and uses VFO A as the main receiver for split mode. So again, if you wanted to reverse that, you'd select one of the other options there. Going back to the file, coming down to PM VFO A. Again, it was set to FT0, and what it was changed to was FT2, the same as the PM split off. So basically it's saying use VFO A for transmit and receive. Again, flicking back to the manual, you can see there that sets the band transmitter to TX. So if you've got the radio already set to receive and you've got VFO A selected for receive, it's not going to mess with that setting that you've initially set on the radio itself. And remember, this is the FT command, which is the TX command. You can see here also FR0 as another command that it's sending through. If we go to FR, there you go, it's the function receive. That's what that one stands for. So you can see here it says VFO A as the receiver, VFO B off basically as the receiver. So if you wanted to change and reverse it, basically you play with the FR and the FT commands based on the manual here and what you want it set to. Given VFO is your main one with the main VFO knob, that was desired in this case. So basically you can see here, yep, that does VFO A for TX and RX, and then you can see here you've got A and B. So FR0 is receive for VFO A, and that is transmit VFO B. So again, so you can see here I changed it to A3 for transmitting on VFO B. Back to our FT command, there you go, transmit VFO B, rather than using this toggle switch here, because you can see it's also toggling TX and RX, which isn't really what the command's intended for. So that was also changed to suit, and here you can see the changes here. So you get the gist of how to do that. This is suggesting that receive is on VFO B and TX is on VFO A. Very easy to confuse yourself when you start flicking between all of these. So take your time, write down what it is that you want the behavior to be. So again, that was using FR3 for VFO B. And you can see there, 3 isn't even a valid one for FR. We go 0, 1, 4, 5. So yeah, some problems in the ini file there. Anyway, I think you get the gist now. But basically, just looking at the summary of the changes for it to work, was changing the PM split on section, the PM split off, the VFO AA, VFO AB, VFO BA, and VFO BB. So that covered making those changes, and some of it was a process of elimination of putting, spurious commands in under each of these and monitoring the serial port to see what Omni-rig was actually sending, effectively, reverse engineering what it was actually sending to the radio for each of the program calls. So that fixed majority of the behavior. What it didn't fix is the problem here that I referred to earlier with the control panel, where you try and select a pull down box and it would quickly disappear on you before you got a chance. So you couldn't key the frequency in here. Basically, any pull down box or selection box that wouldn't let you play with. And again, this is a process of elimination. But what I found with the 3000, and I've got the old 897 here in my shack that I was comparing it with. It has very little commands, obviously not as much functionality as the 3000, but I noticed a big difference there. And you can see this is the polling section where it's reading the radio, irrespective of whether the program or a calling program is asking for the information. Omni-rig is polling for this information across the serial interface, and in this case doing it every 200 milliseconds, and literally every 200 milliseconds it's sending these commands through to request all of this data. What I found, and again by process of elimination, is by deleting this status 4 and status 5 section of the file, it alleviated that problem. Don't 100% understand why. Now, if you're using Omni-rig with other applications like Ham Radio Deluxe or STR Uno, or there's a swag of programs out there that are designed to use Omni-rig, some of the functionality in those programs may not work correctly, but by making these mods, it did get Catsync working 100% as expected. It looked as though when I looked at the commands, every time there was a click it was resending those commands anyway. It didn't seem to be validating what was already there, so it was resending that. However, I don't know what's completely under the covers with the Catsync program there, so won't make any further comment on that. But by removing these statuses, it didn't have any adverse effect to the way that Catsync was operating. It may well do with other programs, and as a workaround, you could always put a batch file to switch different versions of the file in and out of that program folder. One thing I will say that I discovered, the important note, is when you're dropping new files into that Omni-rig folder, ensure that Omni-rig is shut and the process is not running. So when you're playing with Catsync, you can close the Catsync program, and 8 times out of 10 Omni-rig will stop running. But I did keep an eye on the Omni-rig process, in Task Manager, and I did find on a few occasions that it didn't exit and stop running the program. So in those cases, I ended the process because when Omni-rig starts, that's the point that it's picking up and reading the ini files. It's not, it won't pick it up if you just drop the file in the folder while it's running. It won't have any adverse effects on the program, but it won't actually be, pick up and use those new settings. So that can, cause you a bit of a headache if you don't understand that when you're trying to test different changes. So yeah, hopefully that helps understand how to correct that problem specific to the FTDX 3000. Looking at some of the other Yaesu models for the later radios, like the 101, looks like the CAT commands are nearly identical. There's probably a few extra ones there. I only did a quick skim of it. But the fundamental ones here that we've talked about for Catsync to work are certainly the same for those later model radios. But pretty easy to figure that out. Go to the Yaesu website and download the CAT PDF. Some of the earlier radios, like my 897, that information's actually in the main manual rather than a separate file like it is with these later models. But the info certainly is there to work through. So yeah, I'll wrap it up there, guys. Hopefully that helps someone that might be in a similar situation. 73s.